But what people did not see is the amount of preparation and care that goes into a show. That's what separates a good show from a great show from
Absolutely.
a shitty show. And my show wouldn't be where it is without you. I wanted to thank you. I want to thank all the listeners out there for joining us for 299 and a half episodes. And I want to thank Chris. And without further ado.
Welcome to the POZcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Hey, Chris.
What's up, man?
So it only took 300 episodes for you to sit here on this side of the couch.
I finally got an invite. We had to do it in person.
We had to do it in person, and it's been a while. It's been since May since I saw you, and
Yeah,
I see you grew your hair out as well.
I did. Yes, it's long hair season right now. We're going into the winter time.
You
Gotta stay warm.
didn't comment on the facial hair.
No, I didn't, but it's very sharp. You just got cleaned up. I saw you repost your barber.
Yeah. No, he actually didn't do it, and it's going to be upsetting him that I was getting my son.
Oh, you cheated.
I didn't cheat. I only got head. So he actually, I took Oliver, my little guy, to get his hair cut.
Great.
And they gave him a great fade. And I noticed it is an old school barbershop where I take him.
Yeah.
Called Men and Wanta. Shout out for looking for sponsors.
Shout out.
And these guys are like this Dominican squad, and they all have these perfect fucking
that's
fades.
where you gotta go.
And I'm watching him do this guy. I'm watching him. The guy goes back in the chair goes all the way back up, and he's just trimming him up. And I'm just like, hey, when you're done, you think give me? He's like, I got you, man. So he cleaned it up. But everybody, for those of you who don't know, the POZcast is not. It wouldn't be what it is without this guy over here, Chris Mueller, who's been with me for probably at least half of the 300 episodes. So going back probably 2.5, 3 years.
Yeah, it was like towards the end of 2020 because that's when I left my last like full-time actual
through
job.
Loeb, right?
Yeah. Shout out Loeb.
Shout out the Loeb NYC crew. And first and foremost, I just want to thank you for you have helped elevate this show in many ways from a content perspective, the research. What people don't see is the amount of work that goes into the show. Chris gets me a good 70, 73, 74%. I'm trying to be accurate of the way there. Tons of upfront research, and what I love most is that you're like a human AI because you've learned my voice and tone, and you've crafted the questions in a flow in a way that really works well with my style and how I like to ask it. And we've just gotten into a great rhythm, and it's been a fun journey, man.
Dude, it's been a great couple of years, and obviously you got to have a good foundation to build from. So it's been great working with you, and also the first that was my first foray into production in general. So you gave me my start, man. Can never forget that.
Well, I had to be somebody's first, right?
Yeah.
That had to be in this case. So you've been along for the ride. You've been there and seen it all. And you've been on live shoots with me. We've been on episode 250 with Peter Tunney.
Yeah.
You've traveled with me to VCon this past year, and it's fun. We're a team, man, and we've been through some fun stuff and crazy stuff.
Sir.
What's one of your favorite live memories from working with me? From the two times you've been live?
For on show, or can we talk about like the whole experience of it, like just hanging out and stuff? Because I mean, we were just talking about the Schultz thing. That was awesome.
So for everyone, Andrew Schultz announced that he's headlining Madison Square Garden. Dream come true. I mean, I got the tingles when I saw that Instagram reel with his dad.
That was crazy.
Like I was like, and I felt it, right? Because I love Schultz, and you love him too. And tell everyone about the experience at VCon.
So first of all, bring it full circle.
Yeah,
like
please.
he was really the person that got me into podcasting in general. First podcast I saw was back in like 2013. Brilliant Idiots, him and Charlemagne the God. I started seeing clips on YouTube, and I was like, "What is this?" And just kind of got immersed into the world. So bring it literally 10 years later. We're at VCon in Indianapolis. He does a show at VCon, which is awesome. We go see that. It's crazy. He's taking crazy swings at that show. He was going at Gary too.
Just pause to that for a second. The joke that stood out to me, and I'm gonna butcher this one.
Yeah.
He goes, I don't. What was it? It was the 9/11 joke. It was like jets crashing.
Oh
my God. It was bad.
The worst thing to happen with jets since like 9/11.
Oh, he goes, Gary V. Here, I got it.
Let's see. This is Andrew Schultz.
You know what it would be like if Gary Vee owned the Jets? It would be the worst thing to happen since 9/11 with Jets crashing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was going
give or take some creative liberties on that joke.
Yeah, exactly. And then afterwards, we ended up at I don't even know what after party it was, and we're walking.
It was
in,
the after,
and he's standing there like holding the door.
Well, he held the door for us.
Yeah, it was crazy. I was like, oh. Andrew's, and I don't usually get like I work with like talent and stuff all the time, so I don't really care. But that was crazy. Like somebody you've been a fan for that long got you into what you do for a career.
He was just right there.
I was just like,
you were a little starstruck.
I was big.
And we get in the elevator, and I'm standing next to him in the elevator, and this was cool. There was some dude in the elevator I'm sure comedians get this all the time when they're in public. When some dude tries to be funny in front of them, it's like,
it's gotta be the worst.
Don't. It's like, don't do it. And we're in this elevator, and we're like, oh fuck, this dude's doing it. And I'm standing next to Schultz, and we're both like looking over at the guy. And midway through, while the guy's being funny, Andrew turns to me and goes, "Hey, I'm Andrew Schultz. Nice to meet you."
There you go.
I'm like. Yeah, I know who you are. Like, yeah, like, you know what I mean? I was like, hey, dude, what about at VCon when we were ready to do the Gary Vee thing and the stress of that when the day one misfire and we got all down there, we rushed down and remember they're like, wait for it. And then it got bounced to the next day. And that was stressful.
Yeah, man. We had a lot of fun at VCon. We did a lot. We worked hard through it. And then, it was literally, I've never seen something that like micromanaged. It was literally, we're dealing with like 3-second slots. You can't be, over 5 minutes, 5 seconds rather here. And we ended up recording it on somebody else's equipment because it was literally just like plug and play. And I didn't want to like try to even attempt to set myself up, not, press record on this. And then Gary interviews fucked like it came
out well. So what was, from any of the shows, because you edit them also and you prep them, what was a moment that stood out to you? I mean, you listened to them all. Like, what was one of those times where you saw a guest or me even just in like really having a moment and like the goods, as we call it, like the chi of podcasting?
I have to still go back to I forget his name off the top of my head, the hockey player. Dave Scatchard, dude. It maybe has something to do with like that took me, something happened with the audio on Riverside or whatever. It took me like 4 hours or 6 hours to revive it. But we put that into like a 2-parter, and his story is just completely insane, and just like the perspective that he took from it, like literally being at the top of your profession or whatever, and then just losing pretty much everything, your ability to like think, your ability to just be a human being basically, and what he took from that and kind of just turning that into a positive thing. It's something I've thought back to in my life when things are hard.
It's a fucked up story. And just to go back, by the way, that is the #1 most downloaded episode.
Yeah, it's good.
Part two for some reason. Yeah. Because people probably listen and like, oh, let's go back to part 2. Yep. Part 2 is where it is. It was interesting. So one of the pieces that I talk about with Dave Scatchard in that show is he's growing up in, bumblefuck Canada. And that's these kids could skate before they could walk. They could skate before they could walk. Mm-hmm. And fighting's a part of hockey. It self-polices itself. It's part of it. And he never wanted to be a fighter. And he felt like he was thrown into it. And he talked about that and the stresses that come with that. He didn't want to do that. She didn't get the memo, did she?
I guess not.
So we go back to Dave Scatchard, and it was just such an insane episode of his journey, and he got super emotional. I got super emotional, and that really was a special show for me. And then I had the opportunity earlier this year, to interview Chris Pronger, NHL Hall of Fame defenseman. I think he's got the second or third most points. Badass. He has to fact check me. And I said to him, I'm like, Chris, I had Scatchard on the show. I was like, Scatchard's a good dude. I know his story. And growing up in Canada too, you're both from the boonies up there.
Yep.
Did you ever feel like oh man, I got to fight? This isn't what I want to do. And without even skipping, he's like, no, I've been kicking ass since I was a little kid.
It's evident, dude. You can see the picture of him with Bieber just pressing him up against the wall. There's nobody. That's complete elation in that guy's face.
So let's talk about that moment for a second, because I had to ask him that, and he got so excited when I started talking about the Bieber. He goes, man, like he was just skating around. He was cocky, and he just turned his back, and he was blind, and I had to show him who's boss. And he's like, for the outside, it looks like I hit him hard, but I really did. Yeah. And he just goes, I gave him a little face massage against the glass. He's like, you're my world now, bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
Anytime you have the opportunity to smash Justin Bieber against the board, it's like you have to take.
You got to do it.
Peter Tunney, episode 250.
Yep. Tony money, baby.
That was an interesting one.
Yeah, it was. He's an interesting guy. I actually have friends and stuff that are like kind of in that Basel scene too that know him, and I've sent them the episode. They loved it.
Yeah, it's so funny about Peter Tunney. I love the dude. He's so accessible and he's so interesting and he's so out there, but he's also he's incredibly generous, and his whole tagline is he's a dealer of hope. Yep. And that's what it really was. I mean, if you look back at someone's life, and I've interviewed some people with some insane, crazy lives, like Peter Tunney has lived there, done it. And I mean, this dude lived in Twilight, Limelight, whatever, for like a couple of years doing all the drugs. Yeah, he did all the drugs, and then he crashed and sobered up, and he was a Wall Street broker, and then into art. And like I'm like, God, this guy has really turned it around. And I think that's a part of the show that I love. I love pulling out the journey and getting to the bottom and lifting it back up. And it's been a fun ride. I mean, I wouldn't lie to you. There's been moments of like, I kind of, not that I would quit because I love it too much, but there's burnout. There's podcast burnout.
It's an exhausting field. Like, it's not just talking and stuff. You're managing like a whole team and stuff. You're dealing with personalities, which is always, a crazy thing. And yeah, sometimes you just overload. Like, you've changed your approach in terms of how often you record too. You don't want to like burn out. You want to give people your full energy. So that's kind of your currency when you're speaking to people. It
is. And I talk to other podcasters about this too. And they're like, oh my God, Adam, 5 years, 300 episodes. They think that like I record one a week. No. Yeah. This week, this will be my third episode of the week, recording episode 300 in a little bit. But I batch record, and I take the summer off. I'm going to be taking probably early December through January off. Yeah. But I also want to give you some room during the holidays, right? Yeah. Like you're working,
I appreciate it.
Right? Like, and I'm trying not to overload as well. I mean, we have a lot of shows coming up.
Yeah, absolutely.
But after that, I think we're done, and I'm not going to book any more shows till January. So, Chris, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I hope that. I think we have a great partnership.
Absolutely, dude.
You're a pleasure to work with. It's been exciting to watch you grow, to work here in the studio. Roast Me. How's Roast Me going?
It's going good. That was actually one of the meetings that I was taking down in Austin. I'm working with, shout out Raza North, influencer down there that he's got like millions of followers and stuff, and he's got some content. We might be working on something soon with that, so look out for that, hopefully.
Yeah, we wifey and I, we played it. I gave you my feedback. There's parts of it
it's
like.
Rough around the edges.
But there's so much potential there, and I think once you get into the game and you kind of adapt it into, I think that's part of the ambiguity of it, and not the rigid structure allows you to be a little bit more open with how you interpret the game.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's a roaster's game. We'll put it that way. Play at your own risk.
You play at your own risk. So, how do I want to wrap this here? All right, Chris, what's the single greatest piece of advice that you ever received that you take action on daily?
Oh man, that's a funny one because you would think that I would have thought of an answer to this question, but I do have one that came.
Times.
This is my thing. When I first started doing the show, that question was already in rotation, and I was like, this just seems like something that's so front loaded, like it would be difficult to answer. And then I almost made the suggestion to you, like, I don't know if you should keep asking this because I feel like it's hard to. But what happens is as the editor of the show, you see how quickly like something comes to people's minds.
Stump the buoy.
It's crazy. Shout out to my brother-in-law. He at some point he said something to the effect of like, hey, if this doesn't work out, whatever I'm doing in my career, whatever goes wrong in life, essentially, like I can always go back to digging holes, basically. Digging holes in terms of, for like $5, and I'll make it work and build myself back up from that. So that's been my approach in terms of just trying different shit and seeing if it's going to work. Always go back to digging holes.
I appreciate that. Well, so this will be episode number 299 and a half.
Love it.
299 and a half. And I haven't had a half episode yet. I've had parts, but I want to squeeze this in here between 299 and 300 to set up what I'm about to do. And Chris, I'm going to be honest with you. This is, I think this is going to be my most challenging episode. We've had some really intense guests. I mean, Bozeman St. John, I put in an insane amount of prep. Matt Higgins, some guests that I really pay honor by the amount of prep and work that we do. Yep. Because it shows.
Yep.
And
you've been preparing for this one for a while.
Yeah, I've been preparing for this one for 17 years. And I think back to my interviewing idol, Howard Stern. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, it took him how many years? We'll call it 40 years of broadcasting, to have his idol, someone he deeply adores, Bruce Springsteen, on.
Yep.
And there's personal reasons he didn't have Bruce on. There was some things said between it, but
Right.
he did. But what people did not see is the amount of preparation and care that goes into a show. And that's what separates a good show from a great show, from
Absolutely.
a shitty show. And my show wouldn't be where it is without you. I wanted to thank you. I wanted to thank all the listeners out there for joining us for 299 and a half episodes. And I want to thank Chris. And without further ado, let's get on to episode 300. Thanks,
Thanks
buddy.
for having me, man.
It's hard to shake with this mic over there.
I feel you.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the POZcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepozcast.com.